So I think we're going to begin. I'm going to start by asking everyone to mute your phones, your video, and then if you could turn on your video. The whole idea is we're having a meeting because we wanted to see everyone's faces if that's possible. It really makes it feel like a community. And then the view, well, I guess I change it to speaker view, then you'll see we're going to have PowerPoint presentations. It's going to be a great program. So thank you all for being here with us today. I am Judith Shankman. I am the regional director for the Midwest for American Friends of Hebrew University. And I'm so glad to see friends from near and far, from Israel. Thank God you're all here and safe. And you just take care, and our thoughts and prayers are with all of you that this time shall pass quickly. A little bit about us. American Friends of Hebrew University connects the passion of Americans to the talents of the Hebrew University, one of the world's most distinguished academic and research institutions. In addition to raising awareness and funds for the university, AFHU helps the university recruit and retain outstanding faculty, build teaching and research facilities, and provide scholarships and fellowships. AFHU's support helps the university advance understanding in a myriad of fields, including agriculture, astronomy, energy, psychology, medicine, and so much more. You can find out more about AFHU and the Hebrew University on our website at afhu.org. We have future programming, news, and lots of enriching information. We're going to leave time for questions, hopefully at the end, so you can submit your question in the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer and get to as many of the questions as possible. So with that, I'd like to introduce Michelle Katz, our host and dear friend of the Hebrew University and AFHU. Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's great seeing the participant list keep growing. I keep seeing more people joining us, and I hope that continues. I hope everyone is doing well during this difficult time. We don't want to be tone deaf at all and understanding what's happening in Israel, and it affects us here as well, and our thoughts are with you. I'm very proud to welcome you today as a proud AFHU Midwest board member, friend, and supporter of the Hebrew University and alumnus of the university myself. I attended the one-year program back in 1995 to 1996 and still reflect back on it as one of the best years of my life. I've been practicing intellectual property law for the past 20 years, and about 9 years ago, co-founded my law firm, Ad Vitam IP, Intellectual Property for Life. So that's my day today when I am not assisting and volunteering my time with the American Friends of Hebrew University. And believe me, L'chaim IP was on that list when I was brainstorming 9 years ago, but we went with Latin, Ad Vitam IP. But before we get started with our fabulous program today, I just wanted to share with you a bit about the university and the American Friends of Hebrew University, AFHU. I realize that many people on the call are very familiar with the university. This might be a refresher for some, and then for others, this might be very new. Opening its doors in 1925, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem predates the establishment of the State of Israel and is one of the world's most distinguished academic and research institutions. Recently, released ranking of the Center for World University Rankings, Global 2000, list ranks Hebrew University as #1 in the Middle East and 64 globally, thanks to its quality of education, employability of alumni, and the quality of its faculty members. That's very impressive, given that the university is less than 100 years old and resides in a country that's only 73 years old. With over 23,000 students from Israel and 100 other countries, the Hebrew University is a world-class leader. Hebrew University takes on the world's toughest challenges. They are developers of new agricultural methods designed to help a growing global population. They are builders of solutions that are revolutionizing the automotive, security, and high-tech industries. And they are pioneers on computational medicine, focused on treating, preventing, and eradicating disease. We hear about how Israel is a leader in biotech research and innovation, but did you know that 43% of Israel's biotechnology research comes from the Hebrew University? And today, the American Friends of Hebrew University, as Judith mentioned, connects the passions of Americans to the talent at the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. And you know, there are several locations. I would like to share with you a little background on our two speakers. I'm going to start with Professor Nurit, milk before meat, as they say. She is the senior lecturer at the Robert H. Smith Faculty of Agriculture, Food and Environment of the Hebrew University. Her field of expertise is lactation physiology and milk quality, topics she's been researching for the last 14 years. Her academic focus is on the metabolic regulation of milk composition with the aim of increasing the production efficiency of milk solids and product quality in terms of a positive health effect on people. Nurit completed her Bachelor's of Science, Master's of Science, and PhD in Animal Sciences at the Hebrew University Faculty of Agriculture, and did her postdoctoral research at the University of California, Davis. So about her company, BioMilk was founded in 2018 based on 10 years of research that Nurit and the Hebrew University, her colleague, Professor Maggie Levy, conducted into the milk production process. The company has patents on laboratory production processes that mimic the milk of multiple farm animals and is capable of components and is the most suitable food for human babies. Formula differs significantly from it and raises the child's risk for metabolic conditions throughout their life, such as developing type 2 diabetes or being overweight. So we're going to be hearing from Nurit first, but before she starts, I do want to introduce our second speaker. So you're not looking at Kobe wondering who's that person there. So I'm going to introduce him now as well. Professor Kobe is a bioengineer and innovator whose breakthroughs ranged from the first 3D printing of cells to the first commercial human on-chip technology. He is magna cum laude, graduate of the Technion, Israel Institute of Technology, and is the founding director of the Grass Center for Bioengineering of the Hebrew University of Jerusalem. He has received numerous very impressive awards, and he is the founding director of Biodesign Israel, an entrepreneurship program sponsored by Boston Scientific that spun off several medical device companies, including Guidin Medical, CardioVia, and Vinovision. His company is called Future Meat Technologies. It's a food tech company advancing a distributed manufacturing platform for the cost-effective, non-GMO production of meat directly from animal cells, without the need to raise or harvest animals. Future Meat Technologies focuses on developing a new generation of manufacturing technology that enables the cost-efficient production of fat and muscle cells, the core building blocks of meat. The technology is exclusively licensed from the Hebrew University based on Kobe's research. So I welcome everyone and hope you enjoy our wonderful program today. Nurit, do you want to kick it off for us?
Okay, so I'll start. Nice to meet all of you. And nice to be here, and I'll start in a minute. Okay, in a second, okay. So first I would like to say how happy and proud I am to share with you the latest findings from my lab, and especially those that enabled us to open BioMilk company, a company that focusing on delivering milk utilizing cellular agricultural platform. And at first, I would like to introduce myself in a couple of sentences, just to let you know what is my scientific background and how did I come about to open such a company as BioMilk. So basically, I'm what is called lactation physiologist, meaning that I'm studying all kinds of mammals, including cows, goats, mice, rats, and humans, mammary gland. We study all the metabolic processes and mechanisms that control milk production in the mammary gland of different mammals. And we do that with a specific aim to increase the efficiency of production, which means how to make more milk from every kilogram of feed that the animal consume, with reducing the impact on the environment. And we also study it in terms of quality. So we want to make better milk, both in terms of the industrial needs, which means basically more fat and more protein, and both in terms of consumer needs, which means better milk in terms of health. Okay, when we want better quality, higher content of bioactive components like vitamins, minerals, omega-3 fatty acids, specific proteins, etc. So these are the aims of our studies, and we study that how to produce better milk during its production process in the mammary gland itself. And we do that not like other researchers in the milk field, which are basically more interested in the post-harvest processes, which means they consider milk as the raw material and study how to change its composition utilizing technological means mostly. So the fact that we are one of the few labs in the world that really focus in the lactation process makes our group pretty unique. Sorry. So what I want to show you also is a little bit of a glance of what kind of studies that we used to do in my lab, and we also do it nowadays. And what is the context of studying milk, looking and studying milk production. So this is, for example, a study that we took grazing goats, and we compared their efficiency of milk production compared to their counterparts that stayed indoors and fed hay-based diets. Now, all of these is not really interesting. What was interesting to see is that the goats that were grazed on the local in the local grazing area actually produced milk with more fat and more protein, which are aims that the industry really strives for. Okay? They really pursue making milk with greater content of fat and protein. Now, when we envision grazing animals, probably this is what you see in front of your eyes. Grassy, very green, fresh green hills, like in Switzerland or something. But this is actually not close to what the grazing area in Israel looks like. We have evergreen shrubs, very woody, rough vegetation, which has very high content of secondary metabolites, which can cause astringent sensation when they are being consumed. Now, these dairy animals, these goats, could actually consume these plants and produce milk with greater content of fat and protein. However, cultivating this bush, this kind of vegetation, and in order to feed with it, larger animals like dairy cows, for example, is really not sustainable approach. Instead, we took an alternative approach, and we tried to figure out what is the specific chemicals in these leaves that can increase the capacity to produce milk fat and milk proteins. So we harvested the leaves, we dried them, we grind them, and we extracted several components from them. And these components were applied on cells, as you can see here under a microscope, that were isolated from mammary gland of goats and cows. And what you see in red is the fat that these cells produce. And as you can see, when we applied our extracts, these extracts from the leaves on the cells, we really increased their capacity to produce fat. Great, this is what we're looking at. Not only that, not only more fat, these cells had higher capacity to produce energy, indicated here in red, and more energy means more protein and more fat. Again, this is exactly what the industry is looking for, ways to increase fat and protein. But this is the point where everything actually hit us. And we understood that we have the capacity to cultivate cells in petri dishes, in the lab, in small bioreactors, and actually produce milk constituents. And we can study that in terms of how to increase yield, how to increase efficiency of production, and how to increase the quality of milk. Everything in the lab, in very high resolution, really controlled condition that can help us really study and make more of milk constituents that these cells can really produce. And actually, we can do that with all kinds of milk, with all kinds of cows, okay? We can do it, of animals. Every mammalian cells that we can put our hands on, we can cultivate. Of course, from the mammary gland, we can cultivate to produce goat, buffalo, cow, pig, camel milk as well. Everything can be done in the lab, and we actually do all of that in our labs, in our facilities, both in the Hebrew University and in the company that right now we're transferring our technology to it. Actually, we are working in an environment that the food systems around the globe need to really adapt to the new challenges this era brings us. We have a growing number of people on this planet, reaching 9 billion people in 2050. We have a need, a real need to adapt the food systems to use less resources and to impact less on the environment in terms of gas emission, green gas emission, carbon footprints, etc. And all of this, we should start worrying about the welfare of the animals in the agricultural fields. So considering all of that, we have to also understand that we are living in an era where the demand for milk and dairy products is increasing all the time. Okay, 20% increase between in 10 years, between 2017 and 2028. What we expect to have 20% increase in demand and 30% by 2024 increase in the global market worth in $1 billion of the dairy industry. Okay, so from around $70 billion per year to over 30% increase in the numbers. Okay, so increasing demand, increasing requires increasing production, and as we can see, the market is really dominated by the cow milk. Although with the increasing demand, we also have some substitutes, milk substitutes that are dominated basically by almond and soy, and recently by oat milk as well. But although there are some benefits of these plant-derived milks, they are not replacement for animal-based milk products. And this is, I think, something that is really commonly accepted by the academic as well as the medical world. Okay, there are specific constituents of milk that cannot be replaced by plant substitutes. And our solution is simple. We are isolating milk from dairy animals. We cultivate them in the lab, and basically we are able to subtract milk constituents from the medium. And here you can see some results that we have from an independent lab that we sent our milk to. They found a relatively high concentration of the signature proteins, for example, beta-casein, alpha-S1 casein, and whey-acidic protein, which are the signature proteins of milk. These are proteins that derived from these cells and these cells alone, and they are found in the media that we collect from the cells. Also, we have lactose, which is the sugar in milk, and fat with a specific structure that is found only in milk. These cells can secrete into the media. So we isolate, cultivate, and extract the milk constituents from the media that our cells are grown in. I think that the huge benefit using this system is basically being able to really control the composition of the milk that these cells produce. We can tailor a very specific composition of milk, increasing tremendously its health promoting properties, especially, for example, milk-fed globule membrane, oligosaccharides, and specific immunomodulatory proteins that are found as microconstituents in milk from different dairy animals, cows, including goats, etc. But in the bioreactors, where we can control the composition of the milk these cells produce, we can increase these health-promoting constituents and therefore really increase the value of the milk. Okay, I just mentioned two other aspects that the company deals with. One is using the same platform to produce human breast milk, okay? And actually we already have in place collaboration with top hospitals in Israel, establishing the platform to produce breast milk in the lab, which is a very exciting area. And the last arm of our company is utilizing fermentation processes to produce human milk oligosaccharides, which is one of the most important constituents in human milk that cannot be replicated in milk from any other species. And this is something that we pursue to produce using fermentation platform. So just to sum up everything, and I hope that the time is, I'm okay with the time. What we aim to do with the cultured milk that we produce in the lab is to provide high natural value of milk, really tailor-made milk with greater quality, really positive impact on the health of the consumers with sustainable approach of the whole thing. So with that, I will finish, and I hope that we will have time for Q&A because I have a lot more to talk about, but we'll leave that for for the last.
Okay. Nurit, could you unshare your screen, please?
Yeah.
And thank you, Nurit. We'll save the rest for part 2.
Kobe, oh, there you are. You're on. Oh, I have to unmute you. Sorry. There you go.
Thanks, Judah.
So you want me to talk now?
Yes, please.
So I was promised I can talk for about an hour. Let's see what they can, yeah, Judith is saying no. You guys, thank you very much for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Today, I would love to talk to you about Future Meat Technologies, the company that we founded about 2.5 years ago. So why are we talking about meat? Meat is something that is with us since the dawn of human evolution. Chicago is relatively nice this time of year, but there was a significant amount of time in human history where it was a frozen tundra. And finding food was not as easy as going to your local Whole Foods. You actually had to kill a mammoth to eat. And it's only when somebody managed to kill this holy mammoth, suddenly people had the food and could get the fat and the protein that they needed. We need protein. We need protein because protein allows us to have more kids. We need fat because fat allows us to build our bigger brains. And really, we can see that the invention of fire and the consumption of meat allowed the early humanoid species to develop into, well, the modern people in AFHU. And this is why this is a critical part of our heritage and a critical part of the way we experience the world. And if I show you a photo like this, which is what my wife eats, this is tofu, it's fine, right? It looks good, but it doesn't generate an emotional response for you. While if I show you this, Most of you are smiling, even my wife, and she's been vegetarian for the last 20 years. It's because we can actually smell this. There are neuronal circuits that existed for the last 2 million years that allow us to smell the grilling of meat from almost half a mile away. We know when our neighbors are cooking chicken or grilling chicken. The problem is that we really reached capacity. We can't make any more meat. We are using every single acre in every single continent to produce meat. We can't do this anymore at a time where the global demand for protein and for meat is growing. It is growing mainly because of urbanization, not only population growth. And it's growing primarily in India, in China, and if you take a closer look, even in Africa. So no more space, but also bad things. 30 to 60% of global carbon emissions are driven by the meat industry. The meat industry is using about 77% of the arable land and about 23% of the global freshwater supply. This has brought many consumers to look at plant-based alternatives as well, alternatives to meat. Companies like Beyond Meat and Impossible are giving you the right texture of the beef, at least in your burger, and you can find it in most supermarket aisles. The problem is that it doesn't taste like meat. Essentially, I love an Impossible burger, but my kids are not going to eat it. I have little kids, they know the difference. Something is missing. And what is missing is the full sensory experience. Meat is something that we smell. Meat is something that we experience with all our senses. And those are very difficult to replicate with plants. The only technology that can reliably replicate that is actually cultured meat technology. Now, cultured meat sounds like a new technology, but it has been in concept with us for over 100 years. The idea is that you can take cells from an animal and then grow the cells outside the animal in large bioreactors and then assemble them back into meat. The first person doing that was Alexis Carl back over 100 years ago. And the biggest problem, the biggest challenge has always been the cost. So the first burger developed by Mark Post over 7 years ago cost $250,000. That's a very expensive burger, even by Chicago standards. So it actually means that something had to be done to bring the technology to a more realistic number. So I founded Future Meat Technologies about 2.5 years ago, really aiming to bring the cost down. We are the first cultured meat company in the world to break the $10 cost barrier. We produce right now hamburgers, chicken for about $3.9 for a piece. Among our funders, we have Tyson Foods, which you probably know, the Tyson brand, Rich, Mueller. Then companies that maybe you didn't hear about, companies like ADM, Archer's Daniel Midland. That's one of the largest food ingredients company in the world. Mondi Nissan. And then S2G Ventures from Chicago is actually a very large VC fund that has invested in Beyond Meat right before the IPO. Emerald Ventures, Beats and Bytes, so VCs from not only from the US, but also from Europe and from China. And we raised a total of about $45 million to date. Very recently, we signed a joint development agreement with Nestle on developing joint products, and we're working with a couple of American companies to develop products for the American market as well. So what makes us unique? A couple of things. One, we have a very different biology from everybody else. Well, other companies are using genetic modifications to take muscle cells and allow them to grow. We are using a non-GMO method to take different types of cells, connective tissue cells. These are the cells that every time you get cut, close the cut extremely fast. So we can grow them without any genetic modification extremely fast. Second thing is that we have a way to remove the waste products during this growth. essentially every time cells grow, they make ammonia, just like yeast makes alcohol. Well, in the yeast case, alcohol is fun. In the case of ammonia, not so much. So we need to actually remove this ammonia to allow the cells to reach higher densities and essentially get much higher yields. And we're getting yields of about 100 billion cells per liter. That is 10 times more than industry. What this means is that in a bioreactor the size of your fridge back home, your fridge is around 600 liter. I can make 100 kilograms every day, or about half a ton of product every day. That's the equivalent of 250 chickens coming out of your kitchen every day, or 1 cow a day. So if you're having a cow, it's probably because your refrigerator is part of Future Technologies. Nobody's laughing for my jokes. I don't know what's going on, but maybe it's because everybody's muted.
I am.
Because
We are muted.
How do these products look like? This is, for example, one of our early chicken pieces. This is a combination of soy protein and cultured chicken. And you can see the cross section very nicely as well. On the bottom, it's our piece of chicken. On the top, this is farm chicken from the supermarket. So very, very similar. It's very difficult to distinguish between the pieces. This is our lamb kebabs, my mother's recipe, just to make sure that we keep things real. Beautiful browning on the kebabs. Again, cultured kebabs. And one of the things I wanted to show you is that what it actually means to eat this. So you can't smell it. You can only see the presentation. So
is an animal in slaughter.
I'll try to show this video.
Get the muscle that makes our meat. We can take cells from an animal and then grow them without the animal itself and produce meat that is as delicious and as healthy, even better than traditional meat. They can produce the same meat for a fraction of the cost, much faster and much more
chicken schnitzel
than ever before.
Very important.
What you think it is. It is a burger. It comes from a cow and it tastes and looks like your average burger should, but here's the catch. This is clean or cultured meat. It's grown in the lab using animal cells.
It just tastes like meat.
Just like a burger.
ما را به آشپزخانه فیوچر میت می‌برد.
Iranian TV.
مزه گوشت معمولی هم میده.
وقتی که میبریش کاملا احساس گوشت رو داره. دوش هم مثل روی گوشته. مزه‌ش هم طعم گوشت میده.
This is a very famous chef in Israel.
Is an animal in.
So I want to talk a little bit about what it means for the planet. It means that for producing the same amount of meat we do today, we can actually produce 80% less carbon emissions, use 99% less arable land, 96% less freshwater supply. But the cool thing is that our technology would allow us to also have a side stream production of lactate, which is biodegradable plastic. We can double the world's biodegradable plastic in the same process we use to grow its meat. And the implications can't be bigger. If you take a look at the map of the United States, all of us are living in this pink area on the right. You know, my daughter is going to say it's purple, it's pink. All the yellow area, which is about a third of the United States, is pasture. This is where we grow cows. By mass, there are more cows than people on this planet. This entire area, you know, most of it used to be wooded. And if we replace meat production with cultured meat, we can release 90% of this area. allowing forests to regrow would essentially remove 59 billion tons of CO2 from the atmosphere, making the United States carbon neutral for the next decade without changing anything else. You can continue riding your Hummers, just that. So it's a huge vision, and I'm happy to share it with you today. And thank you very much for listening.
Thank you both for sharing about your companies and the technologies that are changing the world. Just a quick anecdote, Kobe, the last in-person big event I attended was when you were in Chicago, February of 2020.
So you're blaming me for COVID-19. Let me just get it straight. Because it's not COVID-19. You notice that. It's COVID.
Kobe what?
No, so, yeah.
No, but it just shows that here a year later, we're still, we haven't given up on bringing good quality programming to our members and to people who are interested. So thanks for joining us again and always being available to share your knowledge with us. And thank you to Nurit. It was really fascinating. We do have time for questions.
So we have, Francine has, okay, so we got a couple questions in the chat box, and then Francine, some people directly sent to her. So let's start with those, and then maybe we can open it up and people can raise their virtual hand. First question for Kobe.
Okay,
oh, you want to start, Francine?
Yeah, I want to know, Judy, do you want to ask your question about fat in milk being a good thing?
Yes, over the years, I'm someone who's always watching my weight, and always the gold standard would be to have low fat or fat-free dairy products. All of a sudden, I've been seeing a proliferation of full fat products. And I noticed during the presentation that more fat was considered more desirable. So I just wanted her to weigh in on that. And then the other issue is how I just was recently diagnosed with lactose intolerance, and I'm using Lactaid brand dairy products or substituting plant-based dairy products for my issue. And in this new production of dairy, what is are these matters being considered? So those two questions. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll start with the last one, with the second question, because it's easier to answer. Actually, lactose is one of the easiest constituents of milk that can be simply depleted from milk. This is a simple enzymatic process of decomposing the lactose and leaving it with glucose and galactose, which lactose intolerant people don't have problem to consume. And in terms of our products, it will be very easily dealt with. Okay, it will be very easy to deal with removing lactose from our milk or producing milk without lactose to begin with. In terms of your first question, it's very interesting, and unfortunately we don't have enough time to go really in depth into the question of what's worse, fat or carbohydrates in our diet. I think that the conception of fat being the origin of everything which is bad with our diet and our health is over the last 5 to 7 years, this concept has been proven wrong. There are special components of milk fat that were proven to be very good for you. For example, the MFGM, you can look it online, you can see it's added into infant formula because it have very unique and a positive effect on health, for example, of babies, but also of adults, and especially obese adults. So it helps your immune system function better. It helps your gut function better. It has also all kinds of effects on your microbiome in your gastrointestinal tract. It has benefits in terms of the metabolism, postprandial metabolism. So after you eat, how you metabolize your food, etc., etc. So this is, for example, fat that is unique to milk and can be found in any other food source, and it has special benefits. Other than that, we can also say that there are specific fatty acids, for example, short and medium chain fatty acids that are good for your metabolism, and they are specifically enriched in milk, and especially of goat and sheep milk. And therefore, I think, again, it's safe to say that the concept of living better with fat-free products is not true anymore. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Nurit. Ellen, you had a question for Kobe.
Right. So I'm just curious from a nutritional perspective, and we've got business and other environmental questions coming up, but from a nutritional perspective, have you looked at what the cooking process results in, how that impacts the nutritional value?
It is exactly the same as meat. There are things that we're doing to in the process that allows us to control it and add or remove some of it. But the cooking itself is going to be very, very similar to the cooking of meat. And that's the entire point. You know, we want the same aromatic compounds to be created because at the end of the day, we spent the last 2 million years eating that meat. Does that answer your question? We can talk about nutritional profile, which is a bigger question, but the cooking itself is no different from the cooking of meat.
Okay, so the impact of cooking is the same on both. So it's got both the pluses and the minuses. Yeah.
Ellen, you also had a question for Nurit.
Right.
No, can I comment on this question also in terms of milk proteins? Because we actually cook milk as well. We pasteurize milk, and we actually decrease the functionality of the proteins. There are some there are proteins in milk that they have a significant effect again on health. And when we cook milk, when we pasteurize it, we actually lose these effects. When we grow milk in the lab, or we produce milk in the lab, we actually can produce it in a hygienic manner. So we hopefully, at the end of the day, we will not need to cook it. We will not need to pasteurize it in order to make it safe. And therefore, we will be able to maintain the health properties of milk proteins. Just a short comment.
That was great.
Okay, Adam had some questions to both of our speakers about both the environmental and the economic impact of these production techniques. Adam, do you want to ask?
Okay, yes, so I had a few different ones, but let's start with the first one. So the future meat presentation talked a lot about scalability, but what are some considerations or challenges in scaling the BioMilk process? How scalable do you think it is generally?
Okay, well, actually, we only started, we are, in terms of how far we are in the process, we are much younger than future meat. We started the whole process in August 2020. So we really, we established the BioMilk company in August 2020. So really new to whole to the scalable in scalability terms. I can say that we're moving fast now to scale up the process, and the larger, the higher, the larger scale that we will, the larger the scale is, the lower the price is, basically. This is in terms of the cow's milk. in terms of breast milk, even if it's going to be an expensive process, human milk is sold on the internet in prices that you will not believe. And this is not a safe product because it's not going through any kind of monitoring the mother's health status or what she ate, if she drank coffee or wine before she pumped her milk, expressed her milk. And what we're going to provide is a safe product. And because the prices are so high and the benefits are so huge, I think that with the breast milk, we'll have the ability to really bring a competitive product in terms of price. And in terms, again, of the cow or sheep or goat's milk, it's going to really depend on the scalability process and the purification process of the product itself.
Okay.
Right. May I ask another one, or do we want to give other people a chance?
Sure, you can ask. I think we could do one more. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so there are a few different ones I added to the chat, but let's see. So so for the future meat case, do the environmental and economic benefits that were outlined in the presentation depend on achieving a certain scale? And what economies of scale are you looking at, and possibly also what diseconomies of scale, if it gets to be, if it has to grow beyond a certain point?
So Adam, one of the unique strengths of our technology is the fact that we can reach cell densities that are usually unheard of in this industry. So relatively small factories will provide the same benefits. The current pilot that is being built, we're right now operating at about 270 liter capacity. The current pilot is going to be at around 800 liter capacity. It's going to finish building in the mid of next month. The next scale is 50,000 liters. The scale after that is about 200,000 liters, and that would allow for approximately $250 million in sales. The economics are not really tied to scale above 1,000 liters. 1,000 liters will have, you will have an operation that is highly efficient. The problem is really the cost of raw materials. Okay, and where can you buy raw materials in massive quantities? And then essentially the periphery, how many workers you need when you actually encompass that. The COGS, the basic COGS for raw materials are not going to change a lot beyond that. So right now we are already, at the level of paying for about $4.8 per liter of culture medium, compared to about $50 to $150 for our competitors. So we can produce our own culture medium. At about 50,000 liters, that's the raw material costs are going to balance out. That's going to be the next facility we're building right now after Series B. The 200,000 liter facility would allow us to move to small molecules. So small molecules essentially remove the needs to use growth factors and reduce the price cost by another 33%. And at that point, 200,000 liters, we are at cost parity with traditional animal agriculture. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, could you clarify? You're using small molecules for what part of the process?
I'm saying a 200,000 liter capacity. Then we can bring in small molecules that would essentially drop the cost of the raw materials by another 33%. And this is when we will achieve cost parity with the animal agriculture.
At 200,000 liters?
200,000 liters, that's correct.
Okay.
But even before 50,000 liters, we expect to be roughly the same as Beyond and Impossible.
Oh, thank you.
So we have, I think, time for one more question. Beverly Auerbach has a question. Beverly, do you want to unmute? Let me find you. Shoot, or I can ask it.
I'm
there you go.
unmuted.
Okay, great.
It's something I've always wondered. In this brave new world where we can produce milk without animals, and we can produce meat without animals or birds, what happens to these huge, huge herds of animals and flocks of birds that are going to reproduce? How do we scale down all these animals?
So there is an interesting, there is something interesting to show. If you take a look at land mammals on this planet, they look like this. So by mass, there are more cows than people. Yeah, so about 60% of the biomass on this planet is animals. So if an alien came here, you'll probably start mooing. There are a couple of things that are different. One, there is very few spaces for wild animals, and we expect that when this industry starts, going down, and breeding is going to be less intense because most of these animals are being, bred with IVF. Once you start scaling the breeding down, wild animals will come in. I don't expect the number of bovine species to go down dramatically because at the end of at least in North America, because they are going to be replaced probably by bison. There used to be, hundreds of thousands of millions of bison, roaming in North America. Everywhere else around the world, they're probably going to go down dramatically. But essentially, once you stop, impregnating them, then birth rates are going to go down dramatically.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. There have been some great questions. Really appreciate you being here today. Thank you, Kobe and Nurit, for taking time, especially now when it's a little scary for you all and it's the evening is approached. So we wish you a peaceful evening. It's been enlightening. The future is bright, and it's really interesting, the work that you're doing to benefit humanity, the world, and we are so grateful. And to all of you attending, please visit our afhu.org for more information. And I thank you all for attending, and we look forward to seeing you in the future, hopefully in person and in Jerusalem. So thank you all again, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening.